It's starting to feel a little old hat to talk about how Ukraine has become the master of drone warfare. But we also can't deny reality. It's the truth. And the reason behind that mastery isn't just what Ukraine does with its drones on the battlefield. Ukraine is the master because it keeps coming up with new and more terrifying drones that rip through Russia's forces. Another innovation has arrived. Ukraine tested Terminator mode in some of its drones, and Russian soldiers dropped like flies. Putin's patsies expected to be in a fight with Ukrainian soldiers. The only solace for Russia's soldiers is that the Terminator isn't coming for them full-time yet. In a June 10th piece, New Scientist made the startling revelation that fully autonomous drones are no longer a pipe dream. They are here, and Ukraine has been testing them. What's more, those tests haven't revealed that more work needs to be done to make the drones more effective. The Terminator, as drone maker Alexander Kokhanovsky dubs the terrifying metal machine that Ukraine has sent into the skies, aced every test that it faced with flying colors. The results are simple. The Terminator flew, found, and finished Russian soldiers without even the slightest scrap of human intervention. Practically everything that we know about this test comes from Kokhanovsky. One of the most senior figures in Ukraine's increasingly drone-dependent defense industry, Kokhanovsky says that the test of the Terminator drone was a one-off, and that the drone performed better than anybody could have imagined. Ukraine sent 10 of these AI-controlled drones into the skies near the cities of Bakhmut and Chaziv Yar, and they did what they were designed to do. Russian soldiers were killed, and equipment went up in flames. The test reportedly involved 10 quadcopter drones that had been programmed using AI to go on a seek-and-destroy mission. Those drones took off and then flew to the front lines, all without human guidance. It took each about 10 minutes to cover between 3 and 5 kilometers of territory. Once the journey was done, each drone activated its Terminator mode, which triggered the operation of an AI model designed to identify targets for the drone to intercept. Kokhanovsky outlines the sheer lethality of the Terminator in a chilling quote shared by the New Scientist. "We just launch it, and we know everything will be dead. Everything that we found there in this particular area will be dead," Kokhanovsky revealed, before adding a unique little insight into how the Terminator works. "There is no connection to the drone at all. You cannot see the video. Nothing. Everything it sees will be killed." That means this drone is unlike any other that Ukraine has produced. Every other drone, even those that don't have cameras to provide real-time videos, is overseen in some capacity by Ukraine. Whether that means watching footage that the drone shoots directly or tracking the drone's course over long distances using satellites and instruments, Ukraine always knows what its drones are doing. There is some level of human oversight, except in the Terminator. This amazing drone does everything by itself. But if there is no video feed from the Terminator, how can Kokhanovsky so confidently claim that the AI-powered autonomous drone did its job? Simple, Ukraine sent reconnaissance drones to examine the aftermath of the deployment. Those reconnaissance drones surveyed a scene that reportedly contained a couple of soldiers and one truck. This meat and metal hadn't been struck by any of the drones that Ukraine's operators were controlling directly, so there could only be one conclusion. The Terminator did precisely what its movie namesake does. It couldn't be bargained with, it couldn't be reasoned with, it didn't feel pity or remorse. No matter what Russia's soldiers would have tried, the unfeeling Terminator came for them and destroyed them. We only know about this test because Kokhanovsky revealed that it happened. Ukraine's military and its defense ministry have kept their lips sealed. There could be a couple of reasons for this. Ukraine may not want to give away any information about how it designed and used the Terminator, as even the smallest scrap could be enough to help Russia develop a version of the drone to deploy against Ukraine. Or, and perhaps more likely, Ukraine recognizes that there are ethical concerns related to using a drone that requires no input from a human, and it's wary about revealing to the world that it has tested one such drone. And that brings us to a part of this story that will lead to Putin and his patsies breathing a collective sigh of relief. The Terminator isn't a brand new drone. The tests that Kokhanovsky has exposed happened about 2 years ago. On the one hand, this is even more terrifying for Russia. The technology that is still supposed to be in development is actually already in Ukraine's hands. It's being tested, it clearly works, and if Ukraine even feels the need, it can bring the Terminator back and deploy it to shred through Russian soldiers and equipment on the front. But on the other hand, the question has to be asked, why is the Terminator not already on the front if it works? The answer is that the Ukrainian government has well-founded ethical concerns about using this type of drone, which we will revisit in a few minutes. For now, it's enough to know that the Ukrainian government has banned the use of AI at the final stage of striking a target. The technology can be used to locate and track, but when it comes to the final strike, any weapon that uses AI needs to be controlled by a human in its final stages. Ukraine knows how dangerous the technology that it has on its hands can truly be. Its tests show everything. Even Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said in 2025 that the use of AI in weapons needs to be regulated now, before it's too late and everybody is building drones like the one that Ukraine tested in 2024. We need global rules, now, for how AI can be used in weapons, and this is just as urgent as preventing the spread of nuclear weapons, Zelensky told the UN General Assembly. Ukraine appears to have created self-imposed rules to that effect. So that means the Terminator is out, for now. A lot could change if Russia gets its hands on similar technology and starts trying to use it on the battlefield. But the bigger story behind this drone is that it may well have been one of the building blocks of an overall shift toward a robot and drone-filled army that Ukraine has been making ever since the tests and continues to work on. 100% autonomy may not be allowed, even if it's possible. But the concept behind this drone, which is to take humans out of the equation as much as possible, thus protecting them against Russia's army, is still very much alive and well. What we see in these tests is the earliest version of the rise of the robots that Ukraine aims to create throughout its entire armed forces. And 2 years after the Terminator flew, Ukraine has gone from taking stumbling steps as it grappled with a technology that it's wary of managing to the confident use of robots, drones, autonomy, and AI in ways that don't create ethical dilemmas. In a March 2025 analysis, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS, outlined what it believes to be Ukraine's key goals as it works on evolving the type of technology found in the Terminator. The number one priority for Ukraine, according to the CSIS, is to remove as many soldiers from active combat duty and replace them with unmanned systems that act autonomously. Not only does this mean the reduction of fatigue, stress, and risk that Ukraine's human soldiers face on the front line, but it's also a solution to the burgeoning manpower problems that could impact Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia in the future. CNN reports that some 2 million people are wanted in Ukraine for attempting to avoid military service, with the Kyiv Independent adding that another 200,000 soldiers who have been mobilized were absent without leave as of January 2026. This is a problem that few talk about but creates a very real burden for a Ukrainian defense force that is trying to deal with the Russian strategy of simply having more of everything. Autonomous robotic systems, or at least robotic systems that can operate on the front lines while being controlled by people stationed kilometers away, would be the perfect solution for this manpower challenge. And with reduced risk, the idea of serving your country in its defense against Russia would also be much more appealing to want-away soldiers who are leaning toward running rather than fighting. If they don't have to come face-to-face with soldiers on the front, more may choose to stay and fight rather than run. But what does this really mean when we consider Ukraine's present and future? There are two ways that the rise of the Terminator and all the machines that have been inspired by it could go. One would be the hellscape that Zelensky and Ukraine seem determined to avoid, where unmanned and autonomous machines are killing without any human intervention. The other seems to be the path that Ukraine is following, a melding of man and machine to create semi-autonomous solutions that may be inspired by the Terminator drone but aren't quite as lacking in soul or ethics. Before we dig deeper into both, we want to remind you that you are watching The Military Show. If you're enjoying this video, then hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming coverage. One vision for Ukraine's warfighting future comes from a Kyiv-born engineer named Yaroslav Azniuk. Speaking to the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, or IEEE, during a December 2025 meeting, Azniuk envisioned a stark future in which swarms of autonomous drones carrying other autonomous drones to protect them against autonomous drones which are trying to intercept them, controlled by AI agents overseen by a human general somewhere, becomes the norm in Ukraine. How do you protect from that? He asks. He says that we could see something similar in the maritime drones that Ukraine has been using to cripple the Black Sea Fleet and conduct strikes against Crimea. The simple answer is that you don't. And if Ukraine were to go all in on the Terminator technology that it tested in 2024, this future would be a very real possibility. Ukraine, along with all battlefields to come, would descend into dystopian hellscapes. The few human soldiers who are deployed would spend all of their time hiding as machines battled machines. Commanders might still be in play, but they will be overseeing drone swarms so large that it will be impossible to govern who and what they target. The war will be fought between AI as much as it will be fought between nations. Some might argue that Ukraine already represents a battlefield much like this. A Russian soldier can look to the sky and see FPV drones on constant patrol, knowing that the human operators of those drones will send their machines in for the kill as soon as the soldier is spotted. But that human interaction is the difference maker. With a human operator, a Russian soldier has the option, however fleeting, of surrender. They could wave the white flag and hope to receive mercy. We have seen that in the recent past. In July 2025, drones and ground robots operated by Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade in Kharkiv used a combination of drones and ground robots to take Russian soldiers prisoner, all without having to directly involve Ukrainian soldiers. The Terminator drone that Ukraine tested were to become widespread, there is no guarantee that this option would exist. Remember, these drones are programmed to track and destroy. There is no room for human compassion, or even the concept of taking prisoners to use as leverage. That is the dystopian disconnect. And it's likely why we're not seeing Ukraine take the Terminator or drones like it from the testing ground into full deployment. Instead, what we see from Ukraine is the cherry-picking of the best aspects of autonomous technology paired with human control to ensure that warfighting doesn't become a completely soulless battle of the machines. Ukraine isn't shying away from the use of AI in its drones. Far from it, in fact. Ukraine is embracing AI, but it's doing so in a way that sees it take a different direction from the one that could have been taken if it had gone all in on the Terminator drone. As the Kyiv Independent pointed out in April, Ukraine's defense ministry has encouraged the development of an AI ecosystem in which more than 200 companies are involved in producing AI-powered drones. That ecosystem has already produced over 300 AI-related developments that are registered on the Brave One platform that Ukraine uses to centralize its drone development activities. Ukraine has also set up the A1 Defense Center, which is an AI hub that Ukraine expects will deliver the AI-powered technology of the future. So Ukraine is clearly using AI, but the how differs from what we saw in the Terminator test. Take what has been happening with Ukraine's strikes against Russian logistics in the near rear over the past few months. Those strikes have been critical to cutting off Russian supply lines, particularly in Crimea, and they are isolating Russian troops. According to Forbes, Ukraine is using AI drones as part of this supply line hunt, and it's been doing so since at least the summer of 2025. These AI drones carry out the initial aspects of what the Terminator did during its trial run. Using AI, they locate, track, and even follow targets, but the key difference is that drone operators can see everything, and they are involved in everything from mission planning to completing the last stage of the assignment, which is to carry out the strike itself. Ukraine's AI drones aren't simply being sent into the skies to kill. They're being sent to specific locations that Ukraine wants to strike. And though they automatically find targets, it's always an operator who makes the final call or approves the AI's decision to strike that target. Elsewhere, AI is being used to take out targets autonomously, but those targets aren't human. In a June 8th report, United 24 Media revealed that Ukrainian company Maxon Systems has developed a new AI-powered system that integrates directly into Ukraine's air defense radar network to allow interceptor drones to track and strike incoming Shahid-type strike drones. The technology has been combat tested and has a 95% success rate of interceptions, and it works similarly to the Terminator. As with the Terminator, an operator chooses a strike zone or target. With the command issued, the interceptor flies. No more intervention is needed. Once airborne, the drone interceptor tracks and strikes with no manual piloting. The onboard artificial intelligence has also been trained to recognize Shahids and similar strike drones, which means that there's little chance of it going rogue. Ukraine still has a human-in-the-loop safeguard in place that allows an operator to cancel an attack up to the last few seconds. Perhaps what we're seeing here is the natural evolution of the Terminator drone tech. Rather than embracing the kill-em-all approach taken with the Terminator, Ukraine's drone developers have built on what the Terminator could do while introducing safeguards to ensure the AI tech only targets non-human assets and can be cancelled at any time. This is the future of automation as Ukraine sees it, meaning the Terminator test was just a stepping stone. Still, Ukraine has no intention of abandoning its plans for a robot army, especially on the ground. Defense News reported in April that Ukraine plans to field 25,000 ground robots in the first half of 2026. And though those robots are capable of semi-autonomous operations up to and including taking Russian positions, as we saw in a remarkable April incident where ground robots imitated one of the main roles of infantry, the focus is less on taking life and more on preserving it. Specifically, Ukraine wants it to use AI technology to ensure that as few of its soldiers as possible die on the front lines. Ukraine's ground robots now run logistics and evacuation missions, taking the place of human soldiers that would have been forced to take the risk inherent in those operations just a few months ago. According to Defense News, Ukraine's General Staff of the Armed Forces has already credited the introduction of ground robots, some fully controlled and others semi-autonomous, as cutting down personnel casualties by a remarkable 30%. What we see in all of these examples is the legacy of the Terminator drone tests from 2024. As for the Terminator itself, it's unlikely that we'll see it on the battlefield anytime soon. Alongside Zelensky, who used his platform at a UN meeting to warn against the dangers of AI in warfare, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has decried the very idea of a fully autonomous killing machine like the Terminator as politically unacceptable and morally repugnant. Ukraine appears to agree, which is why we haven't seen the Terminator in its original form take to the skies since its initial tests. Even if we remove the ethical considerations, there are also some concerns about the AI that powers these types of drones going haywire. What if the AI malfunctions and identifies Ukrainian soldiers as Russians? Friendly fire would take on a whole new meaning then. Can it even be described as such when the offending weapon isn't even controlled by a friend? The Terminator proved that Ukraine could build something that many have theorized, but few ever want to see on the battlefield. The tech behind the drone lives on in the semi-autonomous systems that Ukraine is creating in 2026. As for Russia, the big sigh of relief we mentioned comes with a caveat. If Russia starts introducing anything like this type of tech into Ukraine, then the gloves will be off. The Terminator drone is ready. Ukraine knows how to build it. The drone is combat tested. All it takes is for Ukraine to change its mind, and the test that saw Russian soldiers drop like flies in 2024 could be the new reality that Russia's forces aren't ready to face. For now, that reality doesn't seem imminent, but that doesn't mean that Ukraine isn't developing new drone technology all the time. Do you remember those strikes against Russian logistics that we mentioned? Some of those strikes involved a brand new middle-range drone named the Morrigan, and it's ruining Russia's supply lines. Shrouded in secrecy, this drone is a potential game-changer. Find out what we know and why the Morrigan is so important by watching our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show to learn more about the secret weapons that Ukraine deploys and tests in its war against Russia. And thank you for watching.